Victory Gardens. Back then in the 1940s, we all had one patch of earth behind the house, where we grew tomatoes, carrots, even beans. They called them Victory Gardens. It wasn't just food, it was pride. Every bite felt like we were helping the boys overseas. You never wasted a single seed, not one. Ration books. I remember the little booklet, all stiff and official. Had stamps for sugar, butter, meat, you name it. You didn't eat what you wanted, you ate what you were allowed. Folks traded stamps like gold. You learned to stretch a meal, and nothing ever got thrown away. War bonds. We'd gather in town squares, music playing, speeches echoing. They sold war bonds like candy. Buy a bond, beat the Axis, they'd say. I was just a boy, but even I dropped coins in jars. It wasn't about money, it was about doing your part. Every penny mattered. Air raid drills. Sirens would scream out of nowhere, scared the daylights out of you. Teachers rush us under desks, hands over heads. We thought the war could reach our doorstep any second. We practiced like it was real, and in our little hearts, it was real. We just hoped it never came. Blackout curtains. Every window had 'em, thick and dark like midnight. At night, not a sliver of light could show, not a crack. We thought enemy bombers might see us otherwise. We'd sit in the dark, listening to the radio, shadows dancing on the walls. It was eerie. It was necessary. Scrap metal drives. We'd comb alleys and garages, dragging wagons of old pans, broken bikes, and bent spoons. "For the boys overseas," they'd shout. Nothing was trash if it could be melted down. I once gave up my toy airplane, hurt to let it go, but I knew it was bigger than me. Rationing gasoline. Gas was precious as gold. You got a sticker on your windshield, A, B, or C, depending on your job. Sunday drives? Gone. Most times, we just walked. Folks carpooled to work, even hitched rides. Nobody complained. We knew every gallon was helping a soldier get where he needed to go. Rubber tire shortages. Rubber? Forget about it. Tires were patched, repatched, and prayed over. My pop used to say, "Drive like the wheels might fall off, because they might." We saved old hoses, galoshes, anything rubber, to donate. They needed it for the war. We rolled slow, careful, and grateful for every mile. Loose lips sink ships. Posters. Those signs were everywhere, post office, school, even in barbershops. Big, bold letters, pictures of sinking ships. It drilled into your brain. Don't talk, don't gossip. You never knew who was listening. It made us quiet, cautious. Even as kids, we knew silence could save lives. Women working in factories, Rosie the Riveter. When the men went to war, the women stepped up, rolled up sleeves, tied up hair, and ran the machines. Rosie wasn't just a poster. She was my Aunt June on the assembly line. Grease on her hands, pride in her eyes. They held the home front strong and steady. Crystal radios. I built mine from scraps and copper wire, no batteries needed. You'd lie still, ear to the set, just to catch a whisper of a broadcast. Static and all, it was magic. Voices from miles away telling you the world was still out there felt like holding the future. Hand-cranked ice cream makers. Sunday afternoons, we'd all take turns cranking that old wooden tub. Ice, rock salt, sweat on your brow. It took forever, but oh, the reward. Creamy vanilla, sweet as summer. Best part was licking the paddle when it was done. Store-bought never tasted that good, not in a million years. Coal furnaces. Winter mornings, the whole house smelled like coal dust. Pop would stoke the furnace before dawn, black from head to toe. We'd huddle near the vent, warm in our socks. It wasn't clean or easy, but it kept us alive. You respected heat when it came that hard-earned. Icy ice boxes before refrigerators. Before fancy fridges, we had an ice box, a big old chunk of ice delivered every few days. If you were lucky, it didn't melt too fast. Meat on the bottom, milk on the shelf. That drip tray had to be emptied daily or it'd flood the kitchen. Simpler times. Telephone party lines. You'd pick up the phone and hear someone else's conversation. We all shared one line in the neighborhood, had to wait your turn, and Lord help you if you eavesdropped. Mrs. Jenkins could sniff out a snooper like a bloodhound. Still, news traveled fast, sometimes faster than the mail. Wringer washing machines. Wash day was a process. Tub full of soapy water, shirts churning. Then came the wringer, 2 rollers that squeezed clothes dry. Fingers got caught now and then. Mom'd hang 'em out back, stiff in winter, soft in summer. It was hard work, but it felt like loving the family. Clotheslines full of whites. You'd see 'em everywhere. Sheets billowing like sails, undershirts flapping like flags. Nothing smelled better than clothes dried in the sun. We'd race between them as kids, ducking and weaving. Mama used clothespins like a pro. No dryer hum, just the breeze and a backyard full of life. Milk delivered in the glass bottles. Every morning, like clockwork, the milkman clink bottles onto the porch. Cream floated to the top, and you had to shake it good. Some folks even left notes tucked under the empties. It felt personal, like a friend dropping by with breakfast, and oh, that fresh, cold taste. The Sears catalog. That thing was thick. You could buy anything, tools, toys, even a house. We'd dog-eared pages dreaming of what we'd get if money grew on trees. Mama used old pages for wrapping paper, and when it got too worn out, well, let's just say it didn't go to waste. Embroidered pillowcases. Every girl learned to stitch. Roses, initials, little bluebirds. Mama had stacks of embroidered pillowcases she made as a girl. They weren't just decoration. They were pride, tradition. Sleeping on 'em felt like being tucked in by the past. Those tiny stitches held more love than you can measure. Soapbox, derby cars. We built 'em from scrap wood, wagon wheels, and hope. No engines, just gravity and guts. We'd race down hills, helmets optional, pride mandatory. A crash meant scraped knees and a better design next time. Winning? That meant neighborhood legend status. Those little cars taught us speed, grit, and imagination. Spinning tops. A good top could dance for a full minute on a smooth wooden floor. You'd wind it up, flick your wrist just right, and watch the magic. We'd cheer like it was a World Series. No batteries, no screens, just wood, string, and a little bit of boyhood wonder. Wooden building blocks. They weren't fancy, just plain wooden squares and rectangles, but we built castles, forts, and cities. If you had a vivid mind, those blocks were endless possibilities. And when your brother knocked 'em down, well, that was war. Funny how the simplest toys made the biggest memories. Tin toys. Bright paint, winding keys, clinking sounds, they moved like magic. A marching soldier, a spinning airplane. We didn't need much to be entertained. Just turn the crank and let your imagination take over. And when they broke, you didn't cry. You fixed 'em with tape and love. Marbles games. Every boy had a pouch of marbles, cat's eyes, steelies, shooters. We drew circles in the dirt and played for keeps. It was serious business. Some marbles were treasures, others lucky charms. I still remember the sound of them clinking in my pocket, like a little orchestra of childhood. Cap guns. Little six-shooters with paper caps. Bang! The smell of gunpowder and imagination filled the air. We played cowboys and outlaws till the sun went down. Those toy guns wore our belts loose and our voices hoarse. Nobody needed a reason to pretend. Adventure was just one pow away. Paper dolls. My sister had drawers full, cut-out girls and fancy little outfits. She'd sit for hours dressing them, telling stories about tea parties and movie premieres. Gentle hands, careful scissors, that was her world, just as real as mine. And when friends came over, it turned into a fashion show. Jacks and ball. You'd toss the ball, scoop the jacks, and try not to miss a beat. We played on kitchen floors, school hallways, wherever we could. It took rhythm, speed, and sharp eyes. Girls were pros, lightning fast. You'd lose track of time chasing that red ball and those shiny stars. Hand-me-down clothes. Your big brother's jeans, patched at the knees. Your cousin's coat, a size too big. We didn't mind. Clothes came with history, stories in every tear and stitch. Mama made 'em fit with a needle and love. You wore what you got, and you wore it proud. Playing stickball in the street. No gloves, no bases, just a broomstick and a rubber ball. The curb was first base, the mailbox was home. You played until the streetlights came on. Cars were obstacles, not interruptions. We learned teamwork, toughness, and how to hit a pitch that bounced off a pothole. Spam dinners. Oh, spam again? Yep, fried, baked, even diced into macaroni. It was cheap, salty, and always on hand. Not fancy, but it kept you full. Mama could make a wartime feast out of that pink loaf. We may have grumbled then, but now I'd eat it just for the memory. Powdered eggs. We didn't always have the real thing. Those little tins of powdered eggs got whipped into breakfast like they were gold. They looked funny, tasted off, but they filled your belly. Mama could make 'em taste all right with onions and toast. You were just glad to eat. Victory bread. Made with whatever we had. Less white flour, more mystery ingredients. It was coarse and dry, but we didn't complain. They called it victory bread, and eating it meant we were doing our part. Toast it, slather it with margarine, and it tasted like patriotism on a plate. Canned meats. We had shelves stacked with tins, Vienna sausages, corned beef, deviled ham, easy to ship, easy to store. Not gourmet, but it stuck to your ribs. During rationing, canned meat felt like a blessing. Open a can, fry it in a pan, and suddenly it was dinner. Homemade root beer. We'd bottle it in the basement, yeast, sugar, and sassafras syrup, let it fizz for days. Sometimes bottles exploded if you weren't careful, but when it worked, oh boy, cold root beer on a hot day was heaven. Nothing store-bought ever matched that frothy, fizzy magic. Ovaltine. Mix it in warm milk, stir it good, and drink it down. Kept you strong, they said. We believed it too. Ovaltine was more than chocolate. It was part of our bedtime ritual. Just the smell of it now takes me straight back to those quiet, cozy nights. Jell-O molds. Every church potluck had one, bright red or lime green, floating with canned fruit or marshmallows, wobbly and strange, but it was a treat. Mama made 'em with love, chilled 'em overnight. You didn't ask why hot dogs were in there sometimes. You just ate it and smiled. Sugar cubes. We'd sneak 'em from the bowl when no one was looking. One little cube, sweet as candy. Dropped 'em in a tea, watched 'em melt slow. Back then, sugar wasn't guaranteed. You appreciated every grain. Those tiny white blocks felt fancy, even if you were just sipping tap water. Campbell's soup casseroles. A can of soup, some noodles, maybe some tuna. That was dinner. Cream of mushroom made everything edible. Mama called it surprise casserole, and you never asked what was in it. Warm, salty, and made with whatever she could find. You cleaned your plate or went hungry. Hostess snowballs, original ones. Pink coconut marshmallow chocolate cake inside. Came in twos, wrapped in plastic. They were a rare treat, and man, were they good. Sticky fingers, sweet smiles. You'd trade half your lunch for one of those, and if you froze 'em just a bit, pure magic. Zoot suits. Now those were loud, wide-legged pants, long coats, big shoulders. Kids wore 'em to dances, strutting like movie stars. Got you noticed? Sometimes by the wrong folks. Some folks said it was unpatriotic 'cause of fabric rationing. But for the fellas who wore 'em, it was rebellion wrapped in style. Victory rolls. Hairstyle. Every gal I knew had those swooping curls pinned just right. Took time, took patience, and took a lot of bobby pins. My sister would sit for hours doing hers. Victory rolls weren't just fashion. They were flair, defiance, and beauty during a time that needed a little joy. Nylon shortages. When nylon got rationed, stockings vanished. Women drew lines up their legs with eyeliner to fake the seams. I remember my cousin doing it. Took real skill. Nylon was for parachutes now, not pretty legs. A date night felt fancy, even with pencil lines and good lighting. Shoulder pads and dresses. Big, bold shoulders, they gave women power and presence. Even Mama's Sunday dress had 'em. It was wartime style, no doubt about it. Made you stand tall, look sharp. Folks said it made a woman look like she could run a factory or a family, and many did. Saddle shoes. Two-tone black and white shoes, stiff, shiny, and hard on the heels. You wore 'em polished, especially to school. The click-clack down the hallway meant you were put together. Girls wore 'em with bobby socks, boys with cuffed pants. They weren't always comfy, but they sure meant you were dressed right. Fedora hats. Every man had one. A good fedora wasn't just a hat. It was dignity. You tipped it when passing a lady, hung it on a hook at dinner. My old man never left the house without his. Rain or shine, that brim said, "I'm a gentleman, and I'm ready." Seamed stockings. That back seam had to be straight. Had to. Women spent time lining it just right. Made their legs look long and neat. Stockings weren't cheap, and they weren't always available. So if you had a pair, you took care of 'em like gold. That seam meant style. Wool overcoats. Heavy, scratchy, and warm as a hug from your grandpa. Every man had a wool coat come winter, dark gray or brown, buttoned up tight. Mine smelled like tobacco and old leather gloves. When you walked to church with your collar up, you felt like a film star. Hand-knitted sweaters. Mama knitted all winter long, scarves, socks, and sweaters. Each stitch had love tucked inside. They weren't perfect, but they were warm, and they lasted years. Some were scratchy, sure, but you wore them proud. Those sweaters weren't bought. They were made. and that made all the difference. Men's suspenders. Belts were optional, but suspenders? They were the real deal, kept your trousers high and your posture straight. Pop had a Sunday pair with stripes and a weekday pair worn thin. You'd hear the snap when he'd let 'em go after a long day. That sound meant home. Movie tone newsreels. Before the feature film, they play those grainy black and white reels. News from the front line, speeches, factory work. Big booming voices narrated everything like it was history in the making. That's how we saw the war. No YouTube, no TV, just the theater screen and silence except for gasps. Life magazine. Big glossy pages, black and white photos that told stories without a single word. We waited each week for it. The war, the stars, the everyday people, it was all in there. You'd read it cover to cover, then pass it to the neighbors. Life magazine was America, bound and stapled. Radio soap operas. Now stay tuned for the guiding light. The drama poured through the radio, and Mama hung on every word. We'd tiptoe around the house during her shows. Characters felt real, like family. No screen needed, just voices and music. Whole afternoons vanished into stories told between commercials. War bulletins on the radio. Sometimes, mid-song, the music would cut, and that voice would come through. We interrupt this program. Your heart stopped. News from the front. You held your breath. Pop turned the volume up, and nobody spoke. It was serious. Every update mattered. Sometimes it brought relief. Sometimes tears. Comic strips and newspapers. Before TV, the funnies were the highlight of your morning. Dick Tracy, Little Orphan Annie, Blondie. Kids would spread the paper on the floor and laugh while cereal got soggy. Even the grown-ups read 'em. A few panels of humor or mystery started the day off right. Lamplighter cartoons. They were soft, quiet little drawings in the paper, warm, thoughtful, sometimes funny. Lamplighters were like gentle nudges of goodness in a noisy world. You'd clip them out, tack 'em to the fridge or bulletin board. Some folks saved 'em like scripture, just a little light for a dark day. Big band broadcasts. Oh, the music, swinging trumpets, velvet vocals, and rhythm you could feel in your bones. We'd gather round the radio for Benny Goodman or Count Basie. Sometimes Pop would grab Mama's hand, and they'd dance barefoot in the kitchen. That was love. And a good band made it better. Serialized movie serials. You'd go to the matinee and catch a cliffhanger, cowboys, space rangers, or masked heroes. To be continued, they'd say, and you'd groan. Next week couldn't come fast enough. 20 cents bought you adventure and imagination, one episode at a time. You always rooted for the good guy. Humphrey Bogart movie trailers. When Bogart's face hit that screen, the whole theater hushed. Grit, mystery, a voice like gravel. He was the 1940s. The trailers promised danger and romance, all in 30 seconds. Coming soon, they'd shout, and we'd make plans. A bogey picture? That was a night worth dressing up for. Announcers with that voice. Deep, polished, and serious. The news, the ads, the sports, they all had that voice. Men you never saw but trusted completely. And now, the news, and the room would fall silent. They sounded like America itself. Confident, calm, and just a little too fast on the sports scores. Running boards on cars. Back in the day, every car had one. Little kids like me would ride the side, hanging on for dear life. You'd help your lady step in with grace, boots clinking on metal. It wasn't just a step, it was freedom, noise, and Sunday drives with the whole neighborhood watching. Woody wagons. Ah, the Woody, those cars with real wood panels along the sides. They creaked a little, smelled like varnish, and turned heads everywhere. Surfers loved 'em later, but we had 'em first. Packed the whole family in for road trips, picnic baskets and all. It was America on four wheels. Manual choke starters. Starting a cold engine back then was an art. You pulled the choke, pumped the gas, turned the key, and hoped she'd catch. Too much gas. You flooded it. Too little. No fire. Mornings were filled with sputters and prayers. Today's cars got no personality. Ours had quirks. White wall tires. Nothing said class like a fresh set of white walls. Men scrubbed them with a toothbrush before dates. Bright and bold against the pavement, they made your car shine, even if it was a clunker. If you had white walls, you had pride. And folks noticed. Gas ration stickers. A little paper square on your windshield decided how far you could go. A for civilians, B if you were lucky. Cars sat parked more than they drove. We planned every trip with care. No joyrides. Every mile was wartime math. Even gasoline had a patriotic duty. Streetcars. They rumbled down tracks, sparks flying overhead. The conductor knew your name, and tickets cost a nickel. You held the rail and rocked with the turns. Cities buzzed with the sound of them. You didn't need a car, just timing, a smile, and strong legs for the walk home. Hand signals instead of blinkers. Before fancy turn signals, we used our arms. Left turn, straight out, right? Elbow bent up. You had to know the signals or risk a honk or worse. Rainy days made it tricky, but it worked. Everyone understood the language of the road because we had to. Trunk-mounted spare tires. We called them Continental kits. That spare tire sat right out back, shiny as a trophy. Gave cars a little extra flair. Folks waxed them like they were chrome bumpers. Made your old Ford feel like a Cadillac. And if you had a flat, you were ready. Bench seats. One long cushion, driver and passenger side by side, no center console, just closeness. On date nights, your gal would slide over next to you, arm around her shoulder, music playing low. You didn't need bucket seats. That bench held memories, kisses, and more than a few secret hand squeezes. Hand-cranked windows. Reach down, grab the handle, and crank away. Took some muscle, especially in the summer. No buttons, no motors, just gears and elbow grease. Kids in the back always wanted to do it. Felt like a tiny victory every time the breeze finally rolled in. That sound, pure nostalgia. Woolworth's 5 and dime. You could buy socks, candy, a goldfish, and a sandwich all in one place. Long wooden floors, creaky and worn. You'd slide a few coins across the counter, and the clerk wrapped your goodies in brown paper. It was a little store with a big heart. We all loved Woolworths. Victory Mail, V-Mail. Tiny sheets of paper that traveled halfway around the world. You'd write small and neat, fold it just so, and trust it would reach your soldier. They shrank it down to film to save space. We waited weeks for news. And when it came, it felt like gold. Ration coupons at the store. Every trip to the grocer felt like a negotiation. You brought your list and your ration stamps. No stamps, no sugar. You couldn't just buy what you wanted. Mama kept a ration book in her purse like a treasure map. We learned fast how to make do with less. Handwritten ledgers. No computers, no cash registers, just neat rows in a big book. The store owner wrote your name, the item, and the cost. You'd settle up at the end of the month. It was trust, old school style. And if you were short on cash, they gave you time. Door-to-door salesmen. They came with suitcases full of dreams, vacuum cleaners, encyclopedias, brushes, always polite, always smiling. Sometimes Mama bought, sometimes just chatted. They brought the outside world right to your front steps. A little pitch, a glass of lemonade, and off they went, on to the next porch. Green stamps. Every purchase earned you stamps. We pasted them into little books, page after page. When you saved enough, you took them to the redemption store. Toasters, dishes, radios, it all felt earned. We didn't throw receipts away back then. We squeezed value out of every cent. Penny candy. A nickel got you a whole brown bag of goodies, jawbreakers, taffy, licorice ropes. The corner store had jars lined up like a candy rainbow. We pressed our noses to the glass, counted coins twice. That one sweet bite on the walk home, it was everything. Coca-Cola in glass bottles. Ice cold, thick glass, green tint. You popped the top, and it fizzed like summer, no plastic, no cans. You drank it slow, right from the bottle. It tasted better, trust me. And if you returned the empty, you got a few cents back. Every sip had history. Tin can toys in stores. Stamped metal planes, wind-up cars, clicky frogs. They didn't need batteries, just a twist or a pull. You'd find 'em at the 5 and dime, bright and cheerful. Noisy, breakable, wonderful. They had sharp edges and sharper memories. You kept the good ones on the shelf like trophies. Wartime advertisements. Every ad had a message: buy bonds, grow a garden, save gas. Even toothpaste and soap pitched patriotism. Rosie smiled from magazines. Uncle Sam pointed right at you. Companies didn't just sell products, they sold duty. We bought what we could when we could, and always with the war in mind. Chalkboards and erasers. Classrooms smelled like chalk and wood. Teachers clapped the erasers outside, white dust floating in the sun. We practiced cursive on long green boards, letters neat as soldiers. If you got in trouble, you cleaned the board. That wasn't punishment. It was a break from the arithmetic. School primers. See Spot Run? That's where we all started. Those little books taught us reading, manners, even patriotism. The covers were worn, pages creased, passed down year after year. Every kid had one tucked in their desk. And every mom remembered when she learned from it, too. Lunch boxes with thermoses, metal boxes with comic book heroes or cowboy stars. Inside, a sandwich, maybe some crackers, and a thermos full of warm soup or milk. Sometimes it leaked. Sometimes it smelled like last week's bologna. But it was yours. And on a cold day, that thermos saved you. Inkwells on desks. Wooden desks with a little hole for the inkwell. You dipped your pen just right. Too much ink, and the whole page bled. We learned patience, precision, and how to blot with care. Got ink on your fingers? That meant you were learning. No delete key back then, kid. Cursive practice books. Big loops, smooth lines, rows of capital Q's that looked like numbers. Every morning we'd copy letters until our hands cramped. Teachers measured neatness like math. Now nobody writes like that anymore, but back then, Good penmanship was a badge of honor, and we earned it the hard way. Pledge of Allegiance each morning, hand over heart, eyes on the flag, every morning before anything else. We didn't rush it. Some of us had brothers fighting overseas, and that flag meant something. It wasn't just routine, it was respect, a shared start to the day, unified even if we didn't understand it all. School bell towers. You could hear that bell across town. One big clang, and kids came running from all corners. No phone alarms, just sound and instinct. When that bell rang, playtime ended and lessons began. You didn't argue with the bell. It was as honest and official as time itself. Slide rules. Before calculators, we had slide rules, wooden, mysterious, and surprisingly smart. You slid the pieces and got numbers back. Math made mechanical. It felt like holding a secret weapon. If you could use a slide rule, well, folks knew you were sharp. I still keep mine in the drawer. Cloth book bags. No zippers, no logos, just canvas with a strap. Worn over the shoulder, stuffed with primers and pencils. If it rained, the books got soggy. If it ripped, Mama sewed it. That bag was your lifeline to learning, and somehow it held everything you ever needed for school. Classroom globes with pre-1945 borders. The world looked different back then. Countries with old names, borders that shifted with every war. We spun those globes, tracing journeys with a finger. That's where Uncle Joe is stationed. Geography wasn't just facts, it was family. That globe held dreams, maps, and the world as we knew it. Big band swing music. The horns, the rhythm, the romance, Glenn Miller, Duke Ellington, we danced till our shoes wore thin. Living rooms turned into ballrooms. One good swing tune, and your troubles melted away. It wasn't just music, it was mood, it was hope. And it made even bad days better. Glenn Miller Records. We played his records until the grooves wore smooth. Moonlight Serenade could stop time. Glenn's music made you fall in love, miss someone, or believe better days were coming. When he disappeared during the war, it broke our hearts. But his sound, that stayed, still gives me chills. Jukeboxes and diners. Bright, flashing lights and rows of little buttons. You dropped a nickel in, picked your song, and waited for the magic. Maybe it was Sinatra, maybe Ella. The diner hummed with music, burgers, and dreams. That jukebox didn't just play music, it played the soundtrack of youth. 78 RPM records. Thick, heavy discs, one song per side. You had to flip 'em fast if you didn't want silence, crackles, pops, and warmth in every groove. We'd sit around the phonograph, careful not to scratch. Those records weren't background noise, they were an event. And they sounded like home. USO dances. Flags hanging from the rafters, brass bands warming up. The boys in uniform, the girls in their Sunday best, laughter, sweat, and the thrill of a last dance before shipping out. We danced hard, knowing tomorrow might not come. But that night belonged to joy. Ballroom dancing. We knew how to lead, how to follow, a gentle touch on the back, a smooth step in time. Even the shyest fella had a chance on the dance floor. It wasn't just movement, it was connection. Romance began in waltzes and ended in vows. We danced to live. Crooners on the radio. Bing, Frank, Perry, those velvet voices drifted through the night. Mama would hum while folding laundry. Dad would whistle as he shaved. Those crooners didn't just sing. They soothed. They made you feel like everything was going to be okay, even if the world was upside down. That kind of voice stays with you. The Andrews Sisters. Boogie-woogie harmonies that made your feet tap. They sang for the troops, for the folks back home, for everyone. Don't sit under the apple tree. We all knew the words. Their music was fun, fast, and full of life. They brought smiles where they were needed most. Singing around the piano. Someone played, everyone sang, no sheet music, just memory and feeling. You are my sunshine. Sentimental journey. We weren't great singers, but we sang loud, and we sang together. It made the house warmer even when the windows rattled from the wind. That piano was our hearth. The sound of a needle on vinyl. That gentle crackle before the music began, it was the sound of anticipation. The needle dropped, the room hushed, and the song filled the air. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That sound meant comfort, nostalgia, and home. Still does. You never forget that first note.